Well, hello and happy Wednesday. It is digital host AJ Wuest welcoming you back to Before the Four, where I take you through some of 48's top news stories and then some before the 4 o'clock newscast. Wherever you're watching right now, whether that is on Facebook, it's on YouTube, or the 48 Now live stream, thank you for watching and spending just a little of your Wednesday afternoon with me. But with all of that said, I think it's about that time we jump into some of today's top stories. And starting things off in Albertville, where school officials say an Albertville high school student was arrested for making threats towards the school. Now, this arrest comes after more than a dozen similar arrests of students all across the Tennessee Valley. Albertville school officials say the student made threats on social media. Now, administrators say they immediately began an investigation, identified the student, and made the arrest. They said no weapons were ever found at the school and there was never any danger. Now, officials urge parents to talk to their kids about the repercussions of making threats towards the school. They said every single threat is treated the same and investigated thoroughly. And the topic, and also on the topic of the different school threats across the Tennessee Valley, 48's Daquan Lee will be reporting on the ongoing school threats in Limestone County. So make sure to stay tuned to our evening newscast for updates from Daquan coming up. And now in Morgan County, where a woman was arrested after authorities say she was using drugs while pregnant. Now, according to investigators, the Morgan County Department of Human Resources contacted authorities after a baby tested positive for fentanyl, amphetamines, and methamphetamines back in July. They had identified the mother as 28-year-old Haley Crane, who you're currently seeing on screen. Deputies arrested Crane yesterday and charged her with chemical endangerment of a child. She was booked into the Morgan County Jail on a $2,500 bond. And in Huntsville, where police have now made an arrest in a shooting that left one injured. Now, police confirmed to 48 that Markeith Jackson, that's who you see on screen, was arrested on Monday. He is charged with aggravated assault. Investigators say they were called to Lancewood Drive for a shooting. Officers found one victim when they arrived. They were taken to the hospital with life-threatening injuries. Now, Jackson remains in the Madison County Jail on a $30,000 bond. And now let's head into the weather for a bit. If you saw that lunar eclipse last night and took a picture of it, comment a photo right now. Me personally, I did not get the chance to see this supermoon, this lunar eclipse, but I would certainly love to. So if you have a picture, please send it my way. But let's turn it over to 48 First Alert Chief Meteorologist Brad Travis with the forecast. How's the forecast looking, Brad?
Hey, AJ, beautiful day today. The clouds stuck around longer than we thought, and it turned out to be a little cooler than we thought it was going to be, so that's always nice. We are watching the tropics. A lot of buzz on social media about this. I'm going to stress this is a week away, but the model guidance is hinting at this. I'll talk more about this in a minute, but one of the models has it moving west. The other one has it moving towards Florida, so there's no consistency. Therefore, we're not even going to try to forecast where it's going to be yet. National Hurricane Center just putting out that 20% chance over the next week of development. I think that will increase, though. Beautiful clouds over there in the shoals over Wilson Lake today. It's 83. Other area temperatures, even some upper 70s. How about 73 in Lawrenceburg? That's what the difference the cloud cover does on a day like today. When you don't get the clouds, it's easily about 90 degrees. And they're all continuing to kind of circulate around this area low pressure that's now moving back to the east. That was once we thought would become a tropical storm, but didn't quite make it, didn't have all the characteristics. But here's a look at what's going on here. We've got the clouds that continue to kind of filter through. And here's a look at the tropics. There's an area way out in the Atlantic. It's got the 50% chance, but not a whole lot of attention to that. It's a storm for the fishes and the ships out there. But if you do have a cruise planned in the Gulf of Mexico or even down in the Caribbean, you want to keep an eye on that weather the next 7 days. But around here over the next 3 days, it just gets a little hotter every day, a little bit above normal temperature-wise, but nothing out of the ordinary. And just in time for the weekend for you summer weather lovers. So this is that time of year where summer's still trying to hang on, but fall is knocking on the door. And you notice that more in the evenings and the early morning hours. Back to you, AJ.
Well, thank you, Brad. That certainly sounds like music to my ears. And I see somebody commented. I saw that during the hit. Carrie said, "Hope everyone has a great day. Thank you for what you do." Carrie, how are you doing today? Thank you for watching Before the Four. I greatly appreciate it. But now let's head into a different story, and this one out in Decatur. Now, in Decatur, a man was arrested yesterday morning for intentionally driving his vehicle into another vehicle. Now, Decatur police say just after 10 a.m., dispatchers in Morgan County received a call about a disturbance on 6th Avenue. Decatur police officials said once officers arrived at the scene, a man identified as Derek Ranella, that's who you see on screen, damaged another person's vehicle with his vehicle after an alleged dispute. Now, court documents reveal Ranella was in an argument with his ex-girlfriend and her current boyfriend leading up to the incident. Ranella was arrested and charged with criminal mischief in the first degree. He was transported to the Morgan County Jail on a $2,500 bond. Now, a story in case you missed it. Across the state of Alabama, southern pine beetles seem to be taking over. The Alabama Forestry Commission saying they've seen the worst outbreak of them in 25 years. And in Lawrence County, a widespread of pine beetles in the Bankhead National Forest have been destroyed because of them. 48's Sarah Grace Kennedy recently spoke with Huntsville tree trimmer Dwight Gardner, who says more than half of his day involves cutting down damaged pine trees. Gardner says people should take action immediately if they notice that pine beetles have damaged their trees. And the Alabama Forestry Commission says there have also been reports of tree damage throughout the Shoals, Morgan, and Marshall counties. And now another story in Albertville with another story in case you missed it. One nonprofit is working to foster love and care for members of the community. Now, 48 Savannah Sapp has this story.
This is a labor of love for Jenna Nix. She spent over a decade working in child protective services and knows all too well that children are often removed from their homes with nothing but the clothes on their backs.
It's difficult to see, and we know that we have the resources and that we can help and we can make a difference.
The Not Alone project, currently housed in Albertville First Baptist, has a goal to make that difference. Director Jonathan Johnson says the program provides much needed items to children when they are transitioning into foster care.
2 new outfits, pajamas, underwear, hygiene items, anything necessary for that child's success, along with comfort items.
Johnson says all items currently in their giving room are donations from all over Marshall County. A social worker taking a new child into foster care notifies volunteers of the transition, who then select those items for the child to take with them on their new journey.
If we can embrace that child in on this hard day, then they would remember years from now that they are a part of a community that cares about them.
Johnson added that while foster children are the main priority, their mission is also to provide support for foster families and social workers who provide safe spaces for them.
So we would like to give them appreciation gifts each month, just as a reminder, and we just want to stand beside them as they fight for our children.
It feels incredible to make an impact, any impact. I mean, it's such a blessing. I mean, it really is.
Absolutely. Thank you, Savannah. Now another story for you in case you missed it. A new lawsuit brought against Alabama Secretary of State, Wuest Allen. The suit claims his recent removal of voters violates the Voting Rights Act. 48's Nick Ballinger with more.
13th Alabama Secretary of State Wuest Allen told me he found and removed more than 3,200 non-citizens from voter rolls in Alabama. A lawsuit filed by the Campaign Legal Center, Fair Election Center, and Southern Poverty Law Center is challenging this removal. The suit alleges something Allen told me himself, admitted the virtual certainty that voters on this list, the purge list, included naturalized citizens.
If they've become naturalized since since we've got that information, we want to know that as well.
It's clear that that information was riddled with errors and that the program is flawed by design.
Kate Huddleston, senior legal counsel for the CLC, claims that because Allen removed voters 84 days from the November primaries, that violates the 90-day deadline that the National Voting Rights Act sets. The suit also challenges the way people on the list were found.
Every single naturalized citizen, so a person who is a U.S. citizen who is an immigrant and was born outside the United States, has previously had a non-citizen identification number.
But one of the plaintiffs is James Stroop, a U.S. citizen who we interviewed last month after the discovery he too was swept up in this purge of voter rolls. He's never had a non-citizen ID number, raising questions on how the Secretary of State created the list, a question he wouldn't give specifics on.
As you know, the purge program and purge list have been kept secret. The criteria for inclusion is secret.
Well, that showed me that it's a hidden secret that only he and the Secretary of State and perhaps the Attorney General knows how he came up with this formula.
Bernard Simelton is the president of the Alabama chapter of the NAACP, another plaintiff in the suit.
My initial reaction was, why? 2 months or so before the election that these names have been being removed. They go to vote and all of a sudden they cannot vote. And that's a voter disenfranchisement, you know, in its highest form.
Well, thanks, Nick. Now in state news, one challenge we are currently facing here in the Yellowhammer State is the youth mental health crisis. WSFA with more.
The youth mental health crisis, honestly, is just out of control.
Kim Boswell is Alabama's mental health commissioner. She says many of the mental health challenges we face are a result of changes in the way we live our lives.
The reality is the world has changed a lot.
She points to a shift in our behavior from the previous norm of engaging with others to a new trend of leading more isolated existences. Children, for example, who used to play outside with friends now spend more time alone with their smartphones. One study says children spend on average 9 hours a day in front of a screen.
We know in our field connectedness is one of the most important things when it comes to your mental health, and yet we know that we have an epidemic of loneliness in our nation.
And that can lead to tragedy.
911, what is your emergency?
Often we learn mass shooters and others who act out violently were victims themselves of loneliness or bullying, but were unable or unwilling to seek help.
The numbers tell the story. Since 2004, around the time smartphones became widely available, the number of girls treated in emergency rooms for self-harm increased by 188%. For boys, it's up 48%. And doctors say reports of anxiety and depression among young people also have increased dramatically.
The main thing I say to parents is put the phones down. That's for kids and parents. And go outside and do some things with your kids. Make connections in your community, be engaged in your community.
Increasingly, Boswell says mental health diagnoses now also come with other coexisting conditions, making treatment more difficult.
We see young adults, teenagers that may have a mental health diagnosis as well as autism or an intellectual disability.
But Alabama is making strides in streamlining mental health care. In just the last 5 years, our state has been at the forefront of a reimagining of what the system should be.
Very good story there. Thank you. And staying in WSFA down in Montgomery, recently WSFA followed up with one Montgomery woman who was tragically shot, leaving her paralyzed from the chest down. Julia Avant with the exclusive.
Amy Dix, mother of one, sister of four, and friend to many, says her life was filled with love and adventure.
She loved to go and do and be with friends. She was always hardworking. She worked from the time she was 16.
That on-the-go life looks different now after what happened one Friday afternoon.
Do you remember that day?
I remember everything of that day, every minute, every second.
She was driving to a Montgomery car dealership. Her husband needed work done on his truck.
I drove to Atlanta Highway. I was at the red light at Red Lobster, and I heard gunshots, but at the time I couldn't tell if it was fireworks. Like, it really just kind of caught me off guard.
She says she ducked for cover, and when it got quiet, she thought it was over.
And when I sat up in my car, a bullet came through my driver's side window and hit me right here in the arm. At that moment, it was very movie-like. It was very slow motion. I knew I was gonna die. And the first thing I did was pray. And I said, "Dear Heavenly Father, forgive me for the sins I've said and done, and accept me into the gates of heaven."
But it wasn't her time. She gathered enough energy to call her husband and then her mom.
She said, "Mom, I've been shot." And I said, "Who is this, Amy?" It just took me back, and she said yes, and then I could hear the police.
From there, the next thing Amy remembers was waking up in the hospital. She was paralyzed.
Woke up and they told me, I think I already knew. It was just a feeling that I had, and that I knew I wasn't gonna have the use of my legs and I would never walk.
From that moment, Amy tells me she feels many emotions: grateful, sad, and mad. Tonight at 10, I'll show you how she's doing 5 months later and how she feels about the 5 suspects charged in this shooting not being behind bars.
When the bullet hit me, I immediately felt that I was going to be paralyzed.
When Amy Dix woke up in the hospital, she was grateful to be alive. But a long road to recovery was ahead, with her having 10 weeks of intense therapy.
I learned how to transfer and move from point A to point B, and just how to learn my new body.
Her mom has since retired from being a hospice nurse to help with recovery at home and to be by her side.
I'm here for whatever is needed. If Amy wants to travel every day, then we'll get in the van and we'll travel.
What happened to Amy has brought forward many emotions.
I'm angry, I'm sad. The ones that committed the crime are walking the street, and I'm the one paying the price.
5 people under the age of 22 were arrested. 2 were charged with first-degree assault and discharging a gun into an occupied vehicle. 3 were charged with discharging a gun into an unoccupied vehicle. All made bond.
They'll have to answer to what they did one day. I'll be at peace with myself.
Because through this tragedy, Amy has found more love and compassion than she could have ever imagined.
I have a great support system. I have a big family. I have lots of friends.
And now she has even more support, receiving hundreds of cards from across the country.
It was extremely overwhelming to know that I had support from, I think they counted like 30-something states.
Get well soon. God loves you.
2,000 Boston butts were sold to raise funds for the Dix. People even donated a custom handicap accessible van made to help her get around comfortably.
I knew Amy was a good person. She had a lot of friends, but it's unbelievable how many people have reached out. Wonderful person, a wonderful friend, a wonderful daughter, a wonderful mom and wife, yes.
Amy's mom told me if she moved 1 millimeter, the bullet would have gone to Amy's heart. They believe she is here to represent hope and love, and she plans to do that through her 2 dogs. She plans to train them to be therapy dogs to bring love to those who need it.
Remarkable story right there down in Montgomery from WSFA's Julia Avant. But now turning it over to some national politics. The race for the White House, it's just 48 days until Election Day. Both Vice President Harris and former President Trump are hitting key battleground states. the former president taking part in his first public appearance since that apparent second attempt on his life, as lawmakers raise new concerns about how the Secret Service is handling the situation. Garrett Hake with more.
With less than 7 weeks until Election Day, Donald Trump and Kamala Harris are speaking to voters in critical battlegrounds. Former President Trump stumping in Michigan, his first public appearance since the Secret Service stopped a man with an assault rifle at his Florida golf course.
It's a dangerous business, however, being president.
Mr. Trump acknowledging the foiled apparent plot against him, coming just 2 months after a would-be assassin wounded him at a rally in Pennsylvania.
Only consequential presidents get shot at.
The former president also thanking Vice President Harris for reaching out.
I got a very nice call from Kamala. No, it was very nice. It was very nice. It was very, very nice, and we appreciate that.
I told him what I have said publicly. There's no place for political violence in our country.
Kamala Harris appearing in Philadelphia for an event with the National Association of Black Journalists. That event in stark contrast to one Mr. Trump held with the group earlier this summer, when he suggested Harris had suddenly, quote, become black.
I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black.
Harris, who is black and South Asian, telling the panel she doesn't assume her ethnicity will help her with voters.
Black men are like any other voting group. You got to earn their vote.
It all comes as some Trump allies on Capitol Hill are pushing for more protection for the former president.
He's the most threatened person on the planet. He has to have the protection that he needs.
Meanwhile, another Trump ally, Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders, taking an apparent swipe at Kamala Harris for not having children.
My kids keep me humble. Unfortunately, Kamala Harris doesn't have anything keeping her humble.
Kirsten Emhoff, the ex-wife of second gentleman Doug Emhoff, defending the vice president on social media, writing, quote, Kamala Harris has spent her entire career working for the people, all families. That keeps you pretty humble.
Well, thank you, Garrett. Now let's head into the stories that you're just not going to want to miss in our evening newscast. A new baby box now ready for installation. Find out where in our evening newscast. Another story you're just not going to want to miss. The latest details on the South Star Music Festival happening later this month. Get that story from 48 Savannah Sapp. And finally, the latest on the ongoing P. Diddy trial. These are just a few of the stories you're just not going to want to miss in our evening newscast. And I think we all know what time it is. That is right. It is time for Facebook Fun. This was yesterday's 48 Facebook question of the day. We didn't have enough time to get to it, but I promised you all that we would. So here it is. It is Facebook Fun. Time to have some Facebook fun right here. So yesterday's Facebook question of the day was beach house or lake house? For me, I gotta say beach house. I'm kind of spoiled. I grew up at a lake house in Georgia. So I am kind of used to the lake house, but I think a beach house would be phenomenal. But I want to know what you all had to say. Angela Baker said beach house. Okay, very nice. Me and Angela are on the same page there. Thank you for commenting. Susan said beach house. Hey, 2-0, 2 for 2, let's go. Rhonda, she said lake house. Thank you for commenting, Rhonda. Evelyn said lake house. Jeff, he said a Flint River tent. Okay, a tent on the Flint River. That would be kind of fun as well. So a river tent, interesting. And then the other Jeff said a mountain cabin. Yeah, I think that would be awesome too. Still gonna go with my beach house though, of course. I think that would be ideal. But that is just about all the time I have in today's Before the Four. But I want to thank you all for sticking around with me, spending a little of your Wednesday afternoon with me here at Before the Four. If you haven't done so already, make sure you download the 48 digital app, the 48 First Alert Weather app, and of course the 48 Sports Zone app. You're not going to want to miss that. and turn on those push notifications, and you will never miss a breaking story. But with that said, that is all the time I have. But of course, you know, I want to thank you for watching. You all have a great night.